Hello everyone, happy Environment Week. I'm Ehab Sayed, like Tim just introduced me. I'm the founder and director of innovation at Biome, and today I'd like to talk about how nature can inspire us to revolutionize the built environment and how we can work towards a biomimetic future. But first, I want you all to sit back, relax, take a deep breath, and I want you to imagine that you're an omnipresent being, capable of experiencing, feeling and observing every event, situation and circumstance that has taken place over the last 60 years. And take it in. What will your perception be of humanity? Would you see humans as a transcendent species that has rapidly evolved in the most extraordinary way, overcoming barriers to achieve advanced levels of intelligence, consciousness and civilization? Or would you see a foolish species willfully ignorant of its impact upon the world? Would you see a collection of beautiful and unique organisms with limitless capacity for compassion and empathy? Or would you see destructive levels of arrogance and greed in an animal that has forced its own path and forgotten its place in the order of nature, forgotten its connection with the earth and its inhabitants, forgotten the whole that we were only supposed to be a very small part of? Have we created materials, processes, methods of governance and systems that are designed to deplete our planet of its resources? And will we really need another 2 planets worth of resources in 30 years' time to maintain the lives that we have built and learned to love? Have we really exhausted over half of the Earth's precious resources to create our global built environments, which only form around 1% of the Earth's surface? Whilst doing that, we also contributed to over 50% of all carbon emissions to build 1% of the Earth's surface, really. Would you see us as one hand working towards a common goal, or just individuals scattered working towards personal gain and wealth? Would you see greed, pain and hunger, or beauty, compassion and love? Is it too late? Is this a lost cause? Or is there hope? Are we capable of cooperating with and learning from nature and how it managed to build the most sustainable, circular, elegant and efficient environments and systems with the primary goals of regeneration and improved health? Well, the answer to that last one is yes, and there's a term for that, and it's biomimetics. Biomimetics is not the simple imitation of natural form, but it's rather the abstraction of biological systems and processes in order to create solutions for the world that we're living in. The gherkin here is actually a perfect example of biomimetics. It may not look like natural forms, but it's actually got an exoskeleton and it's got a ventilation system which is inspired by coral in the sea. So it's actually a very intelligent and efficient building using the genius of nature. And when we rely more on biology as opposed to technology when we're solving a problem, we're finding that we're using a lot more structure, a lot more information and data, and a lot less resources or substance. We're finding that we're relying a lot less on energy, and we're using all the data that we're collecting on a daily basis, and now with all the advanced technologies and AI that's around, we're able to make that happen. I'm sure you know much more about that than I do. And it requires a certain level of systems thinking. And systems thinking, I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with complexity theory, but it's the idea that the world around us consists of different systems with inputs and outputs. And when you start to see the world that way, you start to realize that these interactions, if you find an output that goes into the same system as an input or another, you create what we know now as a circular economy. And that's a buzzword that we're hearing all the time at the moment, but in its simplest form, we're moving away from a linear economy where we're extracting natural resources, we're making products and materials using carbon intensive and energy intensive processes, and then we're using our products and disposing of them, creating waste and adding to the environmental impact and the impact on our health and well-being. When we move towards a circular economy, we're finding that we're starting the process by reusing, recycling and ethically sourcing materials and products and things that are already in circulation within our economy. We're making use in much more carbon efficient and energy efficient processes, and we're designing for deconstruction. We're taking into account the entire life cycle of a product or a material when we're designing it. And during the use phase, we're introducing things like servitization, we're extending the lifespan of a material or a product, And at that stage, we're actually adding as much value as possible. The circular economy is not simply about recycling resources, but it's about adding as much value as possible at every stage of the way. So the resource that you're using is not depleting in value at all. It's either maintaining the same value or increasing in value. And that's exactly what we do at Biome. Biome is a research and development-led company that places biological systems at the heart of its inspiration to create a healthier and more sustainable built environment. We do this through a range of bio-based materials that we've developed. We've also developed our own construction systems, and we also offer a range of services and research. Starting with our materials, I'll focus first on ORB, or Organic Refuse Biocompound, and it's basically an organic binder that we've developed that can be mixed with any food or agricultural waste to create materials that can be made into sheets or can be molded into complex 3D forms as well. And you can achieve all sorts of aesthetics depending on the type of waste that you're using. And the properties of the material are also influenced by the range of waste that we have access to. So you can see things here like orange peel. We can use different waste streams from agriculture as well, like hemp, and we can use sugarcane waste as well. And we're developing that into a plant-based concrete, which integrates more agricultural waste, and we're tweaking our recipe with our organic binder to allow it to maintain and be able to withhold such really high mechanical loads to rival concrete. Another material we're working with is Mycelium, which you may have already heard of. It's getting quite a lot of publicity lately, and it's basically the vegetative part of a mushroom. If you look at any forest under the ground, there are giant webs of mycelium that hold the topsoils together, and they allow the plants to communicate with one another. And what we've done, and this is a known process that's used in universities and companies around the world, is you're taking the mycelium, you're introducing it to a waste stream or a substrate in a mold, and then you're allowing it to consume that substrate, and what you end up with is a material just like this one here, which has actually got incredible insulation qualities. It's self-extinguishing naturally, and there aren't any chemicals or additives in it at all, and we're developing this into a mushroom-based insulation, or a mycelium insulation. And we're able to rival some of the premium insulation that's on the market. We're actually outperforming all of them, as well as being able to outperform all of the industry standards that are currently in place. We're currently testing and developing the process. You can see Zoe Loughlin there eating ice cream off one side when there was 1,000 degrees of heat on the other, and the ice cream didn't melt. And we're also using it for high-end sort of products and consumer products and furniture. But our mycelium insulation is really our star product when it comes to mycelium, and that's because of its magical qualities when it comes to insulation in comparison to other products that are on the market, and especially when you think about the health and well-being aspects, as well as the carbon footprint and energy benefits that come with it as well. And on top of all of that, we're able to be price competitive as well. When introducing such radical technologies like these, you need to ensure their survival. And when you look at how nature ensures a species' survival, it makes sure that an appropriate ecosystem exists before a species is introduced. And we're able to do that through a construction system that we've developed bespokely for natural materials that may not be able to withhold the types of loads that current synthetic alternatives are able to withstand. And this system is inspired by the molecular structure of carbon. It allows buildings to be deconstructed at any stage of their life, because there aren't any permanent binders or fasteners. It's all basically a giant 3D jigsaw puzzle. And an architect can choose any floor plan and only use our 21 components to create the building. So it offers extreme flexibility and modularity at the same time, which is something that's quite rare within the construction industry at the moment. Although Mycelium and ORB are currently available on the market, Triagamy is still in development, and we're looking to launch it in around 2 years' time. Again, when introducing such a radical construction system, you need to ensure that the appropriate ecosystem exists in place. And we've done that by developing a circular business model that completely changes the sourcing process into a revenue stream. So instead of buying resources, we're actually getting paid to collect resources or having them donated to us. We then turn them into materials. Those materials are then sold to industry and contractually bound to be collected at the end of life. and we include that in the cost of the material itself. And we're able to do that because we're hacking the costs of the actual manufacturing process by getting our resources donated or getting paid to collect them, and then using a living organism as opposed to labor and machinery to create the actual products. And then the building is built on site at 5% of current build times. We are then monitoring the building throughout its life with partners that we're working with at the moment, and then any maintenance or reconfiguration that takes place throughout the building's life is covered with a subscription service. So we're bringing servitization to property, which is a real game changer. And the main reason why the housing crisis is in existence is not necessarily because there aren't enough homes in London, but it's more because the housing market is not accessible or inclusive enough for those who are looking for homes. And we're able to sell houses for something like £20,000 to £60,000 and then offer a subscription service, which is a tiny percentage of that on an annual basis. And that's seen as an investment because at end of life, you sell the components back to us or you take them with you wherever you're going. And it sort of shakes up the property market and separates the value of land and buildings, which is quite an interesting concept that we're also looking to trial before Tragamy is launched with other modular construction systems. Again, you need to ensure an appropriate ecosystem exists when introducing and changing our business models. And we do that by holding lots of events and talks like this one, as well as holding workshops with industry to make sure that we're able to change perceptions and have the industry ready for what we're about to launch or what we're about to bring to market. And it's this sort of systems thinking where we're constantly zooming out every step of the way and looking at the bigger picture and making sure that our product or our invention or technology is fitting in within the current economy in the most efficient and seamless way possible. About a year ago, as Tim has mentioned, Joost, who's the Deputy General Manager at Compass, met with our Director of Projects, Harry, and discussed orange peel. We realised that you guys love to drink your orange juice, and there's a lot of orange peel being generated as a result of that. And orange peel is actually one of the hardest waste streams to get rid of because of its high acidity levels. We have collected so far 1.4 tons of the peel that you have used, which is 24,000 oranges. And that's just to create some, during the research and development process, to create some products like this one here, which is a riser, which hopefully you'll see in your buffet soon. And you can see Tim is very happy with it there. And hopefully within the next few months, or at the very latest by the end of the year, we would have collected over 25 tons of peel from your cafe here at La Place, and which equates to about 450,000 oranges. And that's just the beginning, because right now we're able to achieve, to help you be more circular and achieve circularity with our material orb and the orange peel. But there's almost no limit to the type of waste, whether it's food waste or agricultural waste, that we can use in orb. And when it comes to mycelium, we're also developing new strains of mycelium that we're training to consume synthetic waste like plastics and textiles as well. And that just brings in a whole new game changer to the industry, where it introduces biorecycling in a way that eliminates the toxins that exist in our society. One of the biggest conundrums of the circular economy is, what are we going to do with all this plastic that's circulating within our economy, which is having huge impacts on our health and well-being and the environment at every step of the way. And this may just be the solution: feed it to mushrooms, because they can clean it up and get it out of the system. We've received a lot of recognition and awards along the way from national bodies as well as international bodies, and we're working with some of the largest names in industry. And that's because we've got a really strong philosophy that really connects with large corporations' targets, as well as local and government and global government targets around the world. And we're currently going through a rapid scale-up. And we're going to be launching an equity crowdfunding campaign within the next few months. So if you're interested in that, please do register your interests on our website, because all we really want to do is work towards a biomimetic future that will not only benefit us or the people that we're working with, but will benefit everyone that lives in this planet, humans or other, in a way that allows us to look at things in systems and make sure that there's a circular economy and a future that is inspired by nature in place. Because that is the best way to help us reduce our time and costs. It helps us improve our resource and energy efficiency, and it has a dramatic positive impact on our environmental impact. And I think we don't really need to talk much about this. It's all over the news that we're going through a climate crisis, so there really isn't a better time to take action with this. Most importantly, we're doing this to improve the impact that we're having on our health and well-being, because we don't see buildings as just a place that offers shelter from the elements, but rather they're a place that is conducive to our psychological and physiological well-being. And hopefully that will secure humanity's future as a species that has achieved advanced levels of intelligence, consciousness, and civilization. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ehab. I think that was really great and inspiring talk. We'd just like to open it up to the floor now. If anyone's got any questions, we've got a few mics floating around. If anyone wants to ask a question to Ehab or myself. Yep, we'll go for it.
Really inspiring stuff what you're doing there. So I'm kind of wondering, why doesn't everyone do this? Like this seems to be like a very sensible thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of surprised that this is maybe not more common.
It's really difficult to implement such radical technologies without a really strong network within the industry, with government, with academia. We're only able to do this through the relationships and collaborations that we have built. So we're not doing all this by ourselves, but we're working with really large corporations, with governments, and not just in the UK, but outside the UK as well. And 6 universities are collaborating, 6 of the top universities in Europe are collaborating with us on all of these advances. So it all boils down to making the right connections and collaborations happen to make this possible. So if you look at the certain technologies on their own, they're not necessarily commercially viable as a standalone product, but when you put it into this business model, when you put it in within the whole system, that's when it becomes really commercially viable. So it's just connecting the dots. It's really not rocket science.
So I have a question. Are you working just on the UK market, or you start already like abroad plans? Because as far as I know, like for example, Scandinavia, in there like most of the buildings are made from wood. So England, I'm not sure about it because it's more like.
Yeah.
And and the second question. So does your material meet all the requirements like moisture resistance or like strength and everything to build, for example, walls or roofing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it good enough?
Yeah. So for your first question, right now we're focusing on the UK market simply because it's where we're starting and we have to take things one step at a time, but we're completely open to explore opportunities around the world. We've got a very global team from all sorts of backgrounds and disciplines and from all over the world, and that's always been our aim. We've got a lot of interest in France and in Portugal and in Germany, and you'll find a lot of European countries maybe a lot more advanced than the UK, particularly within the construction industry, when it comes to using natural materials, and the perception is slightly different. So I completely agree with that, and it's something we'd be more than happy to explore. With regards to our materials properties, right now Orb is only really suitable for interior architecture, so dry lining, furniture, products that won't be exposed to the elements, but we're very quickly developing it into becoming completely water resistant and be able to be used externally. One of the things that architects absolutely love about Orb is its aesthetics, and so we've got a lot of demand for using it as facades, and that's something that we're working very hard to make possible. Yes, yeah.
Orange steel stuff, and it's very strong.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, yeah.
Like, when I first, like, Tim showed me, I was like, whoa, it's crazy stuff. I was working in, like, building material. So I was working in Poland for 7 years in the building material business. I was a sales executive. That's why I'm interested in this subject, basically. And it's like we sell a lot of like wood to Scandinavia mostly, as I told you. And I reckon these guys would be very interested because it's like on all these countries, environment is in the first place.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, if material is resistant and is strong, you're gonna make millions. So I can say, man.
Well, you can look at it right now as a comparative properties to MDF. So you can use it in those similar, in the same applications. But we are working very hard to develop it for exterior applications as well. Yeah, yeah.
I think it might be nice to touch on, almost mentioned there, but like the goal of the product is to try and make it more affordable than what's on the market at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. So because of the business model that we've built, we're not only able to compete on social and environmental benefits, but most importantly, it's either comparable to something like MDF, which is seen as a really affordable material in the industry, or it's just slightly more expensive or cheaper. And that's our aim, is that we don't create a premium sustainable material. And I think that's also what makes it quite an attractive material. We're not trying to do this just for personal gain or for personal wealth, but to offer something and create a case study and an example of how sustainability could be done in a holistic way.
It's fascinating. I think you're doing such an amazing job. I was wondering, obviously, as and when properties become, the material become relevant to be external, how scalable is it? Given that it's like a natural process to create this, could you create like towns and houses in really short periods of time?
That is the plan, yes. So we're currently going through a scale-up process, and we're looking with our next facility to be able to provide 20 homes worth of insulation every month. And that's only guided by the size of the facility. That's from a 300 to 500 square meter facility. And we're also able to build upwards and grow upwards, so it's not necessarily dependent on land use. And so we're making sure that there aren't any biodiversity impacts as well from the scale-up process. And so in terms of scalability, because of the processes that we're using are very similar to current industry standard processes, particularly with the old material, it's basically just replacing a binder with an organic one and replacing the substrate with natural substrate. So it's a like-for-like replacement in terms of the manufacturing process, more or less.
How does that compare with the mushroom one? Because that seemed like it was maybe more time intensive.
So with the 20 houses worth of insulation, that's with the Mycelium material. And it could take from 4 days to 6 weeks to grow a panel of any size and of any volume, because you can grow them all using the exact same growth cycle. So within construction, those time frames are actually quite quick. So it fits quite well in terms of meeting the demand.
Cool. Any more questions, anyone? Yep.
I was kind of wondering, how do you see the chances if this takes on to like fix the kind of waste stream issue? Because like right now, the incentives to properly separate your waste, like for a company or also domestically, aren't very strong. So if waste suddenly becomes more valuable because you can reuse it, like what do you think, what influence is that going to have?
Yeah, so regarding the waste streams, there's absolutely no shortage of waste streams. Right now, the amounts that we collect and during the scale up, they're still completely minuscule compared to the actual waste being generated. With regards to the value of waste being increased and the organisations realising that there's a value in this resource, we've worked on future projected business models that will help cushion that. And also at that point, hopefully we would have scaled enough to achieve the right economies of scale to be able to cope with that. Another thing as well is very much like the way we're working with you at the moment, we don't only offer a waste collection service or a product to sell. We like to work as a complete partnership or a long-term relationship where we're working with you to collect the waste from you, turn it into a product, sell it back to you, and have an ongoing circular loop happening. So it's creating those relationships alleviates the risk of one of those partners taking advantage of the other.
Super quick one. Is any of this material going to be used in KGX1?
Good question.
I think it's certainly a journey we're on at the moment. I'm really keen to give Ehab as much orange peel as he can take from us and open as many doors as we can together to work forward towards that goal. But I think getting it scaled up to that higher level, it would be fantastic to see.
Yeah, that's always been the aim for us, is to tackle the construction and building side of things more than anything, because that's where you can have the largest impact. So yeah, there's been some initial discussions.
Cool. I think that's it, unless anyone has any more. No. Well, please join me in thanking Ehab for his time and his team for coming in today.